Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now guys, the Omoyele Sowore storyline continues to evolve with different actors coming into play. So this time around we're going to the eastern parts of Nigeria and we're going to hear from Nnamdi Kanu, rather, not Nwankwo Kanu, but Nnamdi Kanu, the IPOB leader. So with that guys, I bring you this: rescue Sowore now, or he rots in jail like Dasuki, and Nnamdi Kanu sends message to Yorubas. So that's the headline: rescue Sowore now, or he rots in jail like Dasuki. So that's the headline, and it's attributed to Nnamdi Kanu, the IPOB leader. So now let's get into the body of it. Leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, has attacked President Muhammadu Buhari, the All Progressive Congress APC, and its national leader, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, over the arrest of Revolution Now protesters, calling on the Yoruba race to take decisive action now or allow Sowore to rot in jail like Sambo Dasuki. It had earlier been reported that Sowore, the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress AAC in the February 2019 election, had called for a nationwide protest against what he described as bad governance. The protest he tagged Revolution or Revolution Now was planned to take place on Monday, August the 5th. However, his arrest by personnel of the Department of State Security DSS was announced in the early hours of Saturday. Also, following an attempt by protesters of Revolution Now to shut down the Benin highway during the protest, a journalist as well as one of the protesters were arrested by armed security agents in Ondo State on Monday, and this was repeated in most cities where the peaceful protest held. But Nnamdi Kanu, in a statement on Wednesday, wondered why Buhari, Tinubu and others who led a protest against the government of Goodluck Jonathan in 2014 would arrest Sowore and his supporters. Kanu, who is still being wanted by the Nigerian authorities, said, "Below are your typical British-created Nigerians, the worst set of people you could ever possibly encounter, full of unbridled self-hate, stupendous ignorance, hypocrisy oozing from every pore of their decrepit body, and filled with unimaginable wickedness." This set of people now in Aso Rock and their media friends that came out on the streets to march and protest and call for revolution against President Jonathan in 2014 are the same bunch of despicable reprobates against any form of lawful dissent, protest or revolution against their regime. This is not only laughable but an affront to decency, justice and fair play. Apparently, the occupants of Aso Rock are telling the world they can call for a revolution and street protest against the sitting president, i.e. Jonathan, but nobody is allowed to protest against them. Pathetically, some of these poorly educated fellows from their presidency come on their national television to shamelessly provide a flimsy defense of what is clearly indefensible. The same thing late Buhari did in 2014 by openly calling for a revolution and organizing a nationwide street protest with the likes of Bola Ahmed Tinubu against the democratically elected government of Goodluck Jonathan is now a treasonable offense under their rule, even going by the cringe-worthy standards of the most hopeless, backward banana republic on this earth. The detention of Sowore for doing exactly what late Buhari did is a new low for the zoo. Why didn't Buhari, Abba Kyari, El Rufai, Tinubu et al. Wait for the election of 2015 to remove Jonathan before embarking on their 2014 revolution as they are now sanctimoniously preaching? Why did they take to the streets in protest and action they themselves openly tagged a revolution before an election? The only language this Abba Kyari-led Fulani jihadi cabal in Aso Rock understand is consistent mass action and civil disobedience. IPOB has done and is still doing it, and so too the Shiites. What the Yoruba nation and other conscious persons must do now is to rally round Omoyele Sowore to ensure his release, or else it will be another Sambo Dasuki detained indefinitely with no constituency to mount pressure on his behalf, as IPOB did in my case and the Shiites for Sheikh El-Zakzaki. Revolution now is a laudable initiative and must be commended by all lovers of freedom. What Sowore did in calling for a revolution in Nigeria is the highest form of bravery. Protest should continue and, if needed, intensified, especially in Yoruba land, until Sowore is set free. So now this is now the contributions of Nnamdi Kanu to the goings on in the Nigerian space. There's several elements to this media output that Nnamdi Kanu has put out in the public space. So let's just go through a few of them point by point. So he first came out to speak about Nigeria being a British created construct. Yes, we all agree. Well, we don't even have to agree. It's an actual statement of fact that Nigeria is a British created construct. And really, that is the first failing of the Nigerian state. That is the original sin, what this British did, because they just drew the lines around river marks and they said that was a country, not taking into account the disparities of the peoples, because the peoples of Nigeria are completely different nations unto themselves. The Hausa Fulani man is a completely different entity from the Igbo man, and the Igbo man is a completely different entity from the Yoruba man, and the Yoruba man is completely different from all of them, and the Igbo man is completely different from the rest of them, and the Hausa Fulanis are completely different from the rest of us. Now, that difference is not necessarily a bad thing if there's a common interest and a common understanding, but there's no commonality within the Nigerian structure, which is now what has made it now a potent mix. So that original sin committed by the British is still what we are suffering now, and what we'll continue to suffer until we get to that point where we either find some sort of a resolution or we agree to depart. So those are the two options, really. So that first point, there's really no refuting that, and then it goes on into a tirade, the unthinkable wickedness and whatnot, and the self-hatred and whatever, the usual Nnamdi Kanu language. Now, this Jubril thing that he has been doing since whenever is now something that he now needs to drop, because as much as a lot of people are not of a liking for Buhari, Buhari is Buhari. Buhari has been in the Nigerian space for for a good 50 years now, actually at least over 40 years. So we all know who Buhari is. We all know what he sounds like. We all know what he looks like. We all know what he thinks like. So Buhari is Buhari, and Buhari is bad enough an entity for us to all rally against without having to go down this line of is Jubril from Sudan and all this kind of thing. This is just a distraction, and really, if you are going continuously down this is Jubril from Sudan and all this kind of business, you are just really then giving them something to just laugh at and dismiss as a frivolity, because if they are already tagging onto that, look at these silly people, rather than them to contend with what is coming at them, they are busy saying is Jubril from Sudan. It's just a waste of time and a distraction. So just being all that is Jubril from Sudan, and let's face this guy squarely, because he's bad enough of a man for us to all rally to confront without having to do is a Jubril from Sudan and all this kind of, let's just bin that. So that's a bit of a nonsense in my own reckoning, and that's my own thinking, by the way. So let no Igbo guy come and be doing in zobu in my comment section. I am entitled to my opinion, and I'm not being anti Nnamdi Kanu. I'm just saying that Jubril nonsense is a nonsense. So let's just bin it and then face this man squarely, because it's bad enough a man for us to face without having to do his Jubril from Sudan and all this kind of business. So I said, so that bit I'm just going to discount that straight away. Yes, Nigeria is a banana republic, well, and so say all of us. There's really no refuting that. Nigeria is a zoo. Well, I would say a zoo is even more a more civilized space than the Nigerian space, because Nigeria is a new form of law, not yet known to man or beast. So now this now bit that he says about Abba Kyari being the lead in the Nigerian state, well, I will agree with that, because Abba Kyari, of course, is the brain that ties everything together. We all know that Buhari is not an intellectual, is not a man of thinking. He's just a point and shoot man. He's just a point and shoot and continue shooting until you bring them all down or they all go on their knees. That is just his own philosophy. But then the thinking behind it is usually somebody else, and is in this instance is this Abba Kyari guy. So the brain that actually leads that country is this Abba Kyari guy, who has completely corrupted his mind, or not that mind needed corrupting anyway, because should I rather say he has fed into his Fulanism and his religion bent, and fed him fully on that diet to the point of paranoia. So he has heightened his senses in all of those two elements, and is then using those two elements as leverage to control this Buhari guy, who we're still waiting to go and bring his certificate from Cambridge Assessment Center. So he's just so Abba Kyari effectively is the Nigerian de facto president, effectively, and only a fool would dispute that. So these are all of the elements that Nnamdi Kanu said, and then he's rounding off by saying that the Yoruba race should rally behind Sowore, the same way that the Igbos have largely, or significantly at least, rallied behind him, and the Shiites, of course, are falling under one leadership. So if the Yorubas can rally behind Omoyele Sowore, then that would be a potent rather strength. But unfortunately, the Yorubas are really unlikely to rally behind Sowore, because one, Sowore doesn't have the mass appeal amongst the Yorubas as you might think that he does, and then two, the Yoruba person is too opinionated to really fully rally behind anyone, because the last person that the Yoruba race, by my own thinking, ever rallied behind was Awolowo, and Awolowo was an exceptionally gifted man, a genius. So apart from Awolowo, the Yorubas never really rallied behind Abiola. It was the Northerners that pushed him. The Yorubas never rallied behind Obasanjo. It was the Northerners that pushed him. The Yorubas never really, of course, nobody is rallying Buhari behind Tinubu. Is his own brand of politics, of money, and MC Oluomo that is using to promote himself. So the Yorubas don't essentially rally behind any one iconic figure unless that figure shows an exceptional ability. And because the Yoruba people are so gifted within themselves individually, you have to show an exception to that exceptionality of the Yoruba people for them to iconize you. And the Yoruba people, we have here this thing, and father, who is your father? So they don't, every Yoruba man is a bombastic man, so he doesn't really give himself or lend himself to being. If we were like the Northerners, we would have prospered more, because they're just like a rank cadete. People follow your leader. That's just, they have one leader, they all go to the front of his courtyard, he will cook for them and then send them out to the fields to go and terrorize. This is how the body Yoruba man is not like that. So we don't really, by instinct and by being, rally behind anybody. But Sowore is a good iconic figure, and it has appeal, especially for the younger people around about the age of 35. He has pretty much like a 25 to 35 appeal nationwide. That is really what his mass appeal is. And then the other appeal he has is to the consciousness of the people that are watching in alarm as the country continues to regress and fall into the abyss. So now he's now also tapping into that zeitgeist as well. So there's two elements to Sowore, but he's not essentially a Yoruba person, but is rather a young people come left of center type person. So he's a left of center ideologically positioned person, a human right person, a crusader, an activist, and all that kind of element, like a Mandela type. Not, I wouldn't go that far as Mandela, maybe like a Fela Kuti type person, like an agitator. What's that guy in South Africa, the one that always wear the beret as well, is of that ilk, Malele or something I think it's called. So it's of that ilk. So now he's not a Yoruba person, so that Yoruba element of asking the Yoruba to rally behind Omoyele Sowore, that's really a nice idea, but it's not something that is ever really likely going to happen. Now it's not because the Yoruba detest their own, which is what a lot of people will come and comment in the comment section, but really because the Yoruba person is essentially a bombastic person, and you have to be an exception to an exception before you are accepted as an icon. That is the Yoruba instinct. At least that is my own understanding of the Yoruba instinct. You may well differ. Conversations in the comment section. If you do differ, let me know what your thoughts are. But before you come join me in the comment section to have that conversation, click on the red subscribe button so it turns gray. Bell button notifies you every time I drop a new video. Then come share thoughts with me in the comment section. So I'll leave you here, carry on with you there. But here I say peace.